Welcome to Culture Couch Live. I think this is week 2 of 2022. So Emil, our friend from Toronto, how are you over there, mate? Let's not Alex, how are you?
Hi.
James on the second Culture Couch. Good to see you again, mate.
It's good to be back.
We're going to go straight into it. I thought last week we were good general, we introduced our new esteemed colleague, James M. So we had a really good conversation and
fantastic
background. But I might draw on one of the questions now that we've got over the break. So this is from Greg, and I won't read it absolutely directly, but from Greg from Lilydale, actually, so not far from where I grew up. Lilydale, it's a good little spot out there. His question revolves around, if you've lost trust in the leader, I'll read a bit of it. If you've lost trust in the CEO, but you still enjoy the company you're working with, but you feel like you don't have as much power, do you have some tips around that? So it's actually a really good question, because it can be quite difficult, isn't it? I mean, I think one of the things that we know is in performance by design is the CEO is really the ultimate role model, the chief role model, really, So really good question. Kelly, I might go to you first, because we've had this in a couple of sessions without sort of mentioning names. So it's been a direct question, and we have dealt with it probably a little bit over the last 6 months. So maybe I'll hand that question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lilydale, I went to Warburton on the weekend, Rosie.
Nice. Very nice.
Got out into the country with a bit of fresh air. So out your way, I should have got some tips from you before I went out there.
You go to Puff and Billy? That's Belgrade.
No, we went to the Redwood Forest, which was amazing, actually.
Nice.
But look, the leadership topic, I think when you're in a big organisation and you don't necessarily have faith in the leader or the CEO that we're talking about in this instance, you feel a bit helpless. You feel like you don't necessarily have the power to make a difference. And I think that's where the questions come from a few of our groups in the last week is, if I can't make a change and I can't make a difference, then what's the point, is sort of the sentiment that we're getting. But I think the thing that we would really recommend from that is we encourage people to be role model leaders. So, Bruzy, you ask this to teams all the time. Are you the leader that you wish you had? So I think in that instance, it's really just about making sure that you're the leader that you want to be, and you're communicating really well, and you're connecting really well, and you're, living by your values, so that at least then people are seeing how you behave, and then taking some examples from that and bringing that into their own behaviour. And I think in that instance, it's really just important to focus on what you can control, and your behaviour is obviously that key thing that you're able to control in that moment.
I think it's a good point, Em, isn't it? Because often we know people stay at companies for get a paycheck, and we've all got responsibilities, you pay your mortgage, et cetera. So when this topic typically comes up, you get sense there's a little bit of deflation amongst the group, can't you? But what I liked about what Carly says is, if we're going to hold our direct reports accountable, we have to be accountable ourselves first, don't we? So we've almost got to shrug off that sense of helplessness and go, no, this is what I want to be. This is the type of leader. Is that really the starting point, Em, do you think?
I think so. I just wrote, it's control the controllables, isn't it?
Yep.
That's number one. And I think that for Greg from Lilydale, really getting clear on, the leader he wants to be. So how does he want to be described? Really get clear on those values that he wants to make decisions through. And then ask the question, well, what behaviours must I role model to be that leader? And then build the systems, despite the leadership not being where he wants it to be, being able to control and role model to his team is pretty much the best you can do, right? If it continues on and he's very unhappy, well, then his leadership's going to go with it as well, and it might be time to think about where's the next. But if he's managing his own people, getting clear on who he is and what he stands for as a leader, and then building strong relationships with his team is by far and away the best thing that he can do to keep his sanity and still make a difference. Because let's be honest, people don't leave companies; they leave usually the primary leader that's leading them. So control the controllables and get clear on who he is and what he stands for as a leader, I would say.
Yeah, I think also, James, it's not just potentially CEO that's lost a little bit of trust. It's also maybe a new CEO coming in, and because you don't know them, you haven't built that sort of strong connection. That's come up a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I know you're really strong on that connection piece. Yeah, that if you can build a really good network, whether it's up, down, sideways, it does become really valuable, particularly in potentially tough times.
Absolutely. I think, and I don't want to repeat Carly and Emil's absolutely valid points, but I just want to emphasise, I suppose, from my perspective, the maintaining great connection and those relationships in your immediate environment. Obviously your own behaviours driven by your own values, but connecting with people through that lens and letting that role modelling be evident to your own team and across your network. I've worked like Carly in big organisations, and look, sometimes the structure is just overly complicated, but at the end of and leadership has to, try and work within that context, but just doing the things you can to connect broadly, so laterally across and up where possible, to influence in the ways that you want to influence through your own values, through your own behaviours. It's all down to those connections. The moment, though, that you think, I've lost trust in the top CEO, and then you shrink away from those existing connections, you're actually doing, throwing you're throwing a hand grenade into the system. You've really just got to maintain the behaviours that you're comfortable with. People will see that, connect with it, and your influence starts to spread that way.
Yeah.
I think influence is a good point, Jane, because I like that idea of, because it might be the trusting might be just a simple incident that happened and they have a different. So it's not like there's an incompetence or a huge, and in a big organisation, and I like the idea of controlling the controllables, because I guarantee there's not a CEO in the world that's not happy with good performance. So if the section of your business is performing really well and you're performing well and he's seeing really good behaviours, as I said, it might be just a simple miscommunication, and then suddenly through that action and through that performance, that he actually starts to go, geez, James, what are you doing in your area?
Yeah. And sometimes, Ruzi, it could be that the industry is heavily regulated, or there's politics. You're not always aware of the things that the CEO is having to grapple with. Yeah. And so therefore you're misreading the tea leaves on the way through, or you're just not aware. You haven't got the level of awareness. So it can be a temporary thing. You can, it can be won back, but you've just got to maintain your own role model of things you can. Don't lose your stuff over something that you're not fully aware of.
So
Carly, I want to ask you, Carly.
Yep.
Sorry, I want to ask you, because I reckon the other point is, James, you touched on it. Be interested in the CEO. Ask him a question. How are you? He's got shareholders, a board, managing director. So, Carly, talk to that a little bit. That maybe it's a case of you getting out of your comfort zone and finding a little bit more out about how the CEO. Ask the question.
Yeah, I think, and we often talk about the leader's role as quite a lonely role. And this sort of fits into that, if once we get into a system where we're happy to give feedback, that conversation with the CEO is actually really helpful to them and really important to them. So, I noticed you were a bit distracted today. Is something happening? Can I help you with? The team really want to spend time with you, but I know you're not available. How can I help you with that? So even those small bits of feedback, they don't often get that feedback. And I think that's really important for them. But obviously you need to have the connection that James talks about, and you need to have the relationship to be able to have those conversations. But we started off by saying, sometimes it feels a bit hopeless. And I know myself in that role, I thought, well, I know having that conversation isn't going to make a change, so I don't want to waste my energy on it. But now that I've been working within the PVD system for so long, I think the answer should really be,
Yeah.
I need to be brave enough and I need to stick by my values to have that conversation with the CEO, because even if it doesn't make a difference, maybe it will. And at least I'm then standing by my own values, my own principles, and by the code that we've developed for the business. So I think, Rizzy, your question is really still have that conversation, still give that feedback. And if they choose not to take it on board, then, that's okay. But at least you've done what you think you need to do in that situation, I think is really important.
And I think on that end, everyone we encourage people to have their own personal brand as well. So if your personal brand involves being supportive and you're not trying to support the CEO, you're actually not holding yourself accountable to your own personal brand. So maybe talk to that as well, Ed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that's what I've had that experience in my own company where I was out of whack because I wasn't speaking up. And I was the boss. I was the CEO. And it grinds you. Like when you live outside of your values, it takes a mental toll, right? And I still get sort of physical experiences of this. But so for Greg there, if he cares, we would say you will speak up and you'll deliver the message because you do care, not because you care enough, not because you care, you don't want to hurt their feelings, right? The where it gets difficult is, does it threaten your role in the company and your position and the politics of it all? But I reckon it's better to live your values and sleep well at night than hang around and be out of whack, because I don't know, in my experience, it doesn't lead to a very great place. It's the exact opposite of a great place.
I think the other thing, James, too, which I've really enjoyed is the profiling. We talk about right way, right time, right place. So if you've got to understand the CEO, the boss, whoever it is. So don't just storm into his office and Jane, why did you do it? So I think that's part of it, isn't it? It's really understanding what makes he or her tick to try and support them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, not every organisation, Greg's, may not have done profiling, but it's an awareness piece, right? So even if profiling's not being done, it's walking a mile in someone else's shoes. What sort of person does the CEO present as? They might be more detail focused or more, outcomes focused. But you've got to try and understand who it is you're dealing with and how you can connect with that person. And I love the work of Brene Brown, Dare to Lead, the concept of rumbling. To your point, Emil, being prepared to step into the space, be curious, empathetic, bringing your empathy, bringing your whole self into it, and understanding you may not get a full answer from the CEO in the first go around, but you've built another line of connection.
It's a few dollars in the trust bank,
I think on that, James, too, Carly, is if you don't ask or if you don't try, get back to Emil's point, you're not actually even testing your personal brand. And you might have more in common and you might start to make more inroads by testing your own personal brand. If it's honesty, okay, I'm going to be honest with this guy. If it's supportive, I'm going to be supportive. If it's caring, I'm going to be caring. So you have to test your personal brand at all levels, don't you?
Yeah. And I think stepping out of your comfort zone, that is something that builds trust and puts a lot of those dollars in the comfort in the trust bank. So, you may feel that, you shouldn't be doing that in your position, but it will build trust. And as long as you do it, like you say, Ruzy, right place, right way, right time, you nearly always get a positive outcome from it in some way, shape, or form, I think.
Yeah. I would say as well, I
really like the question, Em. It's a good question.
It really is. If I had one sort of, I guess, suggestion, thinking about just our basic fundamentals, cultures, not your parties, perks and ping pong, as I like to say, but your behaviours you accept and reward of each other. See something positive, reward it. See something negative, then challenge it. And if you're not sure, ask.
Yeah.
So I think if I was Greg, I'd send like a really simple managing expectations email and say, hey, can I ask you a few questions? And actually lead with questions and be really curious. I'd like to learn more about and the way you made your decisions and And to your point, James, might uncover the fact that, yeah, they're battling with, you know, a tough board and, you know, things that you just don't understand. And we know that empathy and vulnerability are neuromagnets. Like, they build trust, they put extra dollars in the trust bank. So I think you can't go wrong by just being curious and saying, hey, can I understand more about what's going on? I don't think you can lose there. I mean, if he walks away from that and it's not great, then there's a few dollars to a few, you know, checkpoints to say maybe he's in the wrong place. But being curious, I don't think you can go wrong.
You're curious. Fine. I like the idea of, and Carly, you touched on it. Leaders often don't get any feedback, even a well done. You know, mate, well done, Brucey. Thanks very much for that yesterday. It was really good what you did in the meeting. Like, leaders just don't get that much, particularly positive feedback. And we talk about that 4-to-1 positive ratio. So even just, shoot a real positive email. Thanks very much. Sales gone really well. Really appreciate you jumping in here or whatever. So look, hopefully, great question. I really enjoyed that.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Really good question.
Really good conversation, guys. Thanks for that. So thanks, James. Thanks, Carly. Thanks,
Sonia, James. Thanks, Carly. On your Rosie.
Thanks, everyone.
Great hosting, Rosie. Positive feedback. Loved it.
Well done.
Positive feedback. Well done from all of you. Excellent
Thanks,
work.
guys.
I've got a haircut. Too.
I was going to say that,
Feedback.
Looking sharp.
Yeah, sharp. What do you think? I got some feedback on the last Performance by Design meeting we had that my hair was too long. So kept the feedback. I love it. All right. Have a great
thanks, guys. Cheers for now.
We'll see you
Bye-bye.
next week.
Later.
Of the Couch Live. See you later.